man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
All right, guys, welcome to Without a Country. As a reminder, that song is Wild by Free Vices. Hello, how's everyone doing? It's the holidays. It's the holidays. I'm actually normally by this time sick of the holidays. I'm not yet sick of the holidays. I feel like maybe they didn't over-holiday the holidays. Maybe Luigi Mangione, in fact, distracted us from the holidays. So kudos, the gift that just keeps on giving, really. Anyway, what are you doing on New Year's Eve? I say this every year, but please, if you think something, a last-minute incredible invitation is going to come your way, just so you know it's not, okay? The little Corinne Fisher has spent so many New Year's Eves waiting for something magical to happen, and the only time anything magical has happened is when I curated that magic myself. Okay, guys? So please join me for my annual pregame show, Corinne Fisher's Morbid New Year's Eve, with my best friends in the entire world in comedy. And that's how I say it to them, too. It's at New York Comedy Club on December 31st, 2024, last day of this year. It's the New York Comedy Club East Village location. Doors are at 5:30. The show starts promptly at 6 p.m. I cannot reiterate enough how much I mean promptly. We have a stacked show. It will be it will be art down to the minute, okay? Because I wanted to pack as many of my close friends on this show as possible, and to do that, we got to start right at 6 because it is the busiest night in comedy. New Year's Eve. I don't think a lot of people know that outside of the business. People say, what are you doing on New Year's Eve? I say, I'm working. I'm a professional comedian. I'm working. You got to be working on New Year's Eve if you're a comedian. And it's a stacked lineup. We have Harrison Greenbaum, Ryan Long, Danny Polishchuk, Chloe LeBranch, Lev Fur, AJ Giro, and Christina Hutchinson. Again, tickets are already moving quite fast on that one, so make sure to grab them. There will be no added shows because, I got plans with my friends, quite honestly. But it's perfect. You pregame there, and then you can go get drunk or high or whatever you like to do for the rest of the night, because it is an earlier night because it kind of climaxes at midnight, and usually nights go longer than that. Yeah. Okay, let's get into the enemy of the state this week. This week's enemy of the state is people online. It's people online, guys.
Enemy of the state.
I have a comedy clip that I did. I did a joke about Luigi Mangione at New Jokes Night last week, Tuesday. At New York Comedy Club. So that would have been December 10th, right? And so I really work very hard when I'm on New Jokes Night. That New Jokes Night is called Nice Try. It's Michael Costa from The Daily Show's show. Really fun if you want to watch people work out new material. But I do that show often. And so I was doing it last Tuesday, the 10th, and I was like, obviously, I got to write a Luigi Mangione joke. Because, you want to challenge yourself to write topical, but also, each comic has 7 minutes, which is, professional comics are used to doing, at least 15 minutes when we do a showcase show. But you really want to hit the audience with 7 new or almost new or stuff that you're working out material, right? You don't want to cheat. You don't want to go and do your A stuff. That's not the point of the show. So I wrote that day a joke about Luigi Mangione, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it said, Luigi Mangione, he had a lot of back pain, and he had certain, sorry, just go look at the joke online. I can't. Sorry. I'm so tired, and I was trying to paraphrase it, but I've done so much research on Luigi Mangione that I forgot it. Wait, I'll just play it. I'll play the clip for you from my own fucking Instagram. There you go. That's what we're gonna do. I'm like, why am I trying to deliver a joke on mic? But my point being, I wrote the joke that day because that's how new it was. I wrote it with the information I had about Luigi Mangione on December 10th. And obviously it's a case that is continuously updating. So at that point in time, the information I present in the joke was correct, right? And I got it up online as soon as possible. Like, I got my video the next day. I had someone edit it. We got it right up. Because again, topical, you got to get moving and you got to get grooving. And so this is the joke, and this is literally me. What you're hearing right now, what is going viral right now. First time the joke is coming out of my mouth. That's what New Jokes Night is. Just to give a little backstory.
Luigi Mangione, he had back surgery in 2023. And he hasn't been the same since because he's been in so much pain, which that sucks. But it's also the most straight man origin story I've ever heard in my entire life. This man's back hurt for a year, and now a guy is dead. Women are fucking dying with a baby inside us on the toilet, and we're like, should we ask someone? I don't want to interrupt. Should I interrupt Congress? Okay.
That part about the baby dying on the toilet, I improvised on the spot, but I thought it worked. I liked it. It was fun. So I say that was literally the first time I had it in my mouth. So if it feels a little bit like, someone said you sound like a reporter, I'm like, yeah. This literally. Do you know how? I think people don't understand. Like, guys, do you know how hard it is to cleanly get out a joke and elicit a response the first time you do it, no stutters? I don't think people understand what stand-up comedy is. I was so proud of myself that I got that out clean because I was like, I knew I had one chance. I was like, because I have to get this joke out to like basically ASAP. Otherwise it's going to go stale, or someone else is going to, maybe someone else will think of the same concept. So you have to get it out immediately. And you don't have high quality taping at every show. New York Comedy Club does tape it. So I was like, I have to get it out clean now, tonight, first time out of my mouth. So just to give a little backstory on that. But it started going viral, and now it's like going super. It's even going more viral. Like I was like, I wanted to get like 100,000 views. It's on like almost 320,000 views right now, and it just keeps going up. And that's because people mostly in the comments are like saying like he's bi, because the joke is that the punchline is about him being straight, and they're like he's bi, sorry, he's bi. Someone wrote he's bisexual, hope that helps. Well, first of all, it doesn't help. Like all these comments, and I'm not saying it like it was mostly people that don't follow me and don't know me in real life or follow my work. It's just the internet. But I was just like, these comments is like really go look at the comments and then acknowledge that's why everyone hates the Democratic Party, including ourselves. It's this obnoxious attitude. Finally, when the Luigi Mangione slaughtered CEO Brian Thompson, finally the United States of America came together. But of course, we couldn't even enjoy a week of solidarity until the left had to start claiming him as bisexual. And this drove me crazy. It drove me crazy. Well, because it doesn't matter whether he's bisexual or not. It drove me crazy because it's like, what? That's not the point of it. Like, we just have flipped this really interesting, important conversation about healthcare in the United States to, surprise, surprise, ideology, identification, the literal downfall of the Democrats. Guys, please, if you are like in some kind of denial that the Democratic Party is falling apart because of this kind of behavior, please let now be your aha moment, okay? I love gay people. I've been marching in gay pride for years before it was fucking cool, okay? I've been performing at gay shows. I learned some of my first comedy shows or at gay shows. I often credit drag queens with the reason that I got into stand-up comedy, or part of the reason. I phone banked for marriage equality. I am committed to the cause, but please, 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 we have to see past our sexual orientation and our ethnicity and our gender. And I mean, that's, coming from me, who loves to make her whole life about being a woman. And but it can't be the only thing we're running on and the only thing we're caring about. Again, it was such an opportunity for such an interesting conversation about how we all agree that the American healthcare system is humiliating, right? And I think that's really cool with a very polarizing president about to take office on January 20th. That, I think if Trump really wanted to say, like, I'm here because I really do care about people, the first thing he could have tackled was healthcare. And I would have been like, yes, thank you for listening to the American people. Why not start on something that we all, based on this incident, have agreed is something that we're all struggling with as Americans? What a great opportunity. And it is now devolved into some weird, like, Tiger Beat obsession with Luigi Mangione. Like, it's the first time you guys have ever seen anyone with abs. And I'm saying you guys as the world, not you guys wackos. But like, yes, he's a cutie. He's a cutie patootie. Have you never fucked a hot guy before? Get out into the world, okay? Get out into the world or become the hot guy yourself by doing some crunches. Like, this is it was like pathetic, guys. And even the Advocate, gay news source, someone wrote an op-ed, one of the journalists wrote an op-ed in the Advocate being like, yo, like, I'm not even saying this guy is like bi or straight or gay or whatever, but like, we saw this same behavior with Jeffrey Dahmer, and it's not the same. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer, what he did was inarguably deplorable, to borrow a word from the left. But I don't know. I'm like, how did we get off topic yet again so quickly? And when you comment something like he's bisexual, hope that helps, especially on a freaking stand-up comedy reel, like, which is not a news article, it doesn't help. And the problem is, it's not the problem. The problem is not that you didn't contribute anything to society. Lots of people do that every day. The problem is that you commenting hope that helps, like, you actually do think that helps. And it doesn't help. I don't the obsession with claiming this guy as a member of the LGBTQ community has absolutely boggled my mind, and I haven't seen America get off topic on something really important faster than I saw this. And like, just to reiterate, I don't actually have a problem with what Luigi Mangione did. I'm not trying to go Megyn Kelly on here. I'm not trying to go, a father was slaughtered. Yeah, sometimes fathers are bad people. Based on your posts on Father's Day, many fathers are bad people. This notion that someone is more important, or it's somehow a worse crime if someone has procreated to murder them. We've talked about it before. I find it offensive, and I don't agree with it. And this is someone who from someone whose dad is dead, and it has affected her greatly. So I do feel like I have some level of knowledge on this topic. Just to update everyone, Luigi Mangione, because obviously this is still the main story of the week. People are obsessed with him. Luigi Mangione now officially has been charged with first-degree murder as an act of terrorism. Furthermore, with the conversation around him being bisexual, I would say, I guess it is now like, to me, like, pride is about the freedom to be seen as who you truly are, right? That's what pride means to me, as far as gay pride. And that includes like being straight. It's just like, that's just what the gay community for so long was fighting, to be seen and respected for who they really are, to not have to hide that. And now it seems like because of all those years of repression and hatred and homophobia, the LGBTQ community has overcorrected and now basically bullies anyone who isn't a member of the community. Like, the amount of times it's been like, apparently it's like disappointed people to find out that I'm straight is quite puzzling to me, because and it pisses me off, right? Because I respected the LGBTQ community when they said, this is how I want to be seen. Please acknowledge me for who I am. Please see me for who I am. Please respect me for who I am. And when I ask the same, oh, you're born. It's almost like me being straight is somehow archaic, or like I'm wearing jeggings in 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, this is just who I am. So please just respect me and see me for who I am. That's just who I am. I cannot change that about myself. I also think it's wild, and we'll get into how this rumor kind of started percolating, but I also feel like the information, it's so unfounded that he is bisexual. And I think it's so wild and irresponsible to out someone if they're closeted. Like, it doesn't seem like he was like outwardly gay or bisexual. And like, how wild for I'm sure for a community that where many people were outed before they were ready or comfortable to do that same thing to this guy. And then also joke-wise, I'm just like, his Italian mother must be sitting at home like, my son's a murderer, and as if this couldn't get worse, now he's a bisexual. Like, that just made me laugh. But all right, so let's go back to where this rumor came from, right? Because you can go to Google and type it in yourself, right? People are saying a lot of this is coming from Reddit. Reddit has a very strong search results. So normally when you search, if this is discussed on Reddit, it does come up. Obviously, the FBI has gone through and filtered a lot of stuff offline, so it might be part of that. But the rumor, and I'll read the whole article, but the rumor basically comes from a text message from someone who knew him, who said that he made out with, I don't know if it's a his or her, with their friend. That's this whole thing on the internet. Him becoming a bi LGBTQ icon came from one text message from someone who said, my friend made out with him. Guy, I let a woman finger me at a sex club, and I am not bisexual. Do you see what I'm saying when I say we really need to look where our information is coming from and just focus on what is important? And it is not his sexual orientation. But it just pissed me off because, I mean, I have a whole thing about, like, I was like, well, the left yet again proving they can't take a joke, but okay. Whatever, it went viral. It's a great joke. Proud of it. So thepinknews.com. And again, when you're headed to thepinknews.com, and that is one of your strongest sources, that's your number one clue that information is unfounded. So this is from December 11th from thepinknews.com. Where did the rumor that Luigi Mangione is bisexual come from? Unpacking the internet trend. One of the related terms that comes up in Google when searching the name of the alleged UHC shooter is Luigi Mangione bisexual? And just, the reason I'm going into this is not so much that I care whether he's bisexual or not. It's because the comments on the joke, which only helped it to go, we're only helping it to go more and more viral, are it's just a really great, simple example of how quickly information can spread. And then when you try to trace it back to the source, there's very little source to trace back to. That's why I'm going into this on this show. It just felt very fitting, and it's a simple example, right? So it might seem like a pretty strange thing to focus on, but it makes sense in the context of the wider and often bizarre viral storm around the 26-year-old who was arrested in Pennsylvania earlier this week. It's been a wild 7 days on the internet since the world-shaking news broke that United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson had been killed in a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack outside an NYC hotel. Going forward. All right, so we're talking about Luigi Mangione, the alleged gunman, young, handsome, his mask pulled down as he smiled at a receptionist, plus the fact that people were quick to paint Brian Thompson as the Ebenezer Scrooge-like villain of the piece, and bam, the sexy shooter memes quickly went viral, okay? Ex-users in particular were positively tripping over each other to see who could post the horniest response to the photos. And we're talking about this initial photo of him smiling in the hood, but with the mask pulled down. It was at its core an outlet for people's intense frustration about the U.S. healthcare crisis. Love that. Love that. Stay on topic, as well as a distraction from the doom and gloom of modern life. The suspect, Luigi Mangione, was apprehended on December 10th at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Bloody, bloody, bloody. We're going forward a little bit. Oh, you know what? I think I went forward in this a little bit more. Someone put a set on X, tried to touch grass for 1 hour, and they've found the CEO assassin, his Twitter, Goodreads, birth chart, cousin album of an Indian wedding he attended, hiking pictures, sexual orientation, family history. Geez, I love this app. The most, to me, that text message is second, if we're talking about him being bisexual, to the fact that they found his music streaming history, and it seemed that he was a big fan of Britney Spears, Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey, Ariana Grande, and Charlie XCX. Although I will say off the top of my head, I can think of two straight guys who listen to similar things. So that doesn't, but it certainly is, that's a little sus. The account Britney the Stan said on X, Luigi Mangione was streaming Criminal by Britney Spears 15 hours before his arrest. That's definitely pretty gay. A small but vocal minority of LGBTQ plus people started at that point to claim Luigi Mangione as one of their own, despite any evidence other than his love of artists beloved by the queer community. At that point, several ex-users began to call Mangione gay and shared unconfirmed photos of his, quote, boyfriends. However, the Luigi Mangione is bisexual rumor really took flight at 7:45 p.m. This is a UK article, so it says UK time on December 9th, when the X account of 34th Street Magazine, which covers University of Pennsylvania, where he attended UPenn, campus culture, tweeted, breaking, Luigi Mangione bi confirmed. So basically, we're going off of the college version of Gossip Girl. That's what we're going off of. Okay. Along with an unverified screenshot of what looked like a text message. And those aren't hard to duplicate at all. It read, quote, a friend of mine made out with him when he was a student. For those curious, he is bi. This is a step below Gossip Girl and Demois and Perez Hilton. So this is what we're going off of now. That was my problem with this. This is a singular text message from a singular person. And also, I would argue in 2024, just because you made out with a dude once doesn't make you bi. What? Are you raising your hand? Did you make out with a man, Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, Skankfest is a wild place.
Right? And it's and that's kind of my point, right? I do not consider myself bi. I do not consider myself bi-curious. I am like I said, straighter than my career would like. But I have both made out with a woman in my 20s in a gay club, but it was a man gay club. And I was just this is just, safest option. It was like a Taurus and her mouth was cold. Tourist, not Taurus. I don't know what her sign was. We didn't get that lesbian about it. And then I said, I let a woman finger me in front of her husband at a sex club. That was just me doing my due diligence as a woman because I could tell she was there to spice up the marriage and no one else was helping. And I said, I'll step up. I'm not doing anything else. Despite a lack of any clear evidence or information about where the screenshot came from, people leapt on it. It quickly went viral and has had over 6 million views at the time of writing. This, in turn, led to an almost immediate spike in Google searches for the term Luigi Mangione bisexual, which dropped off slightly the following day, but has continued to peak since then. There is no evidence at all that Mangione is bisexual. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And that's my point. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm just saying to say yes, he is bisexual is quite honestly there's something wrong in your head. But at the moment, it certainly seems like wishful thinking, or at the very least, forcing his story to fit the desired narrative. Let's read that again. Forcing his story to fit the desired narrative. The left is constantly guilty of this. Constantly guilty of this, and people have gotten sued over it. Like, I mean, case in point, the white kid who we thought was taunting the New York Times said was taunting the indigenous person. I mean, example after example, Jussie Smollett, just like example after example after example. When will we learn? And furthermore, it's just not important. Like, I understand, like, this is like become a funny thing, but like it was so much more valuable when we were talking about how we were all so upset about United Healthcare, about how our not universal healthcare system. Like, this was a real moment for us as Americans to turn this into the hashtag Me Too version of healthcare, and instead we turned it into ogling a guy who's like cute. I mean, I just like the guy has a great body, but like. It's like, I think maybe you guys have never seen a handsome Italian man before. I guess me being from New Jersey, I was like, he's fine. I don't know. Yeah, he's a lot better looking than the average person, but the average looking person is gross. Like, yeah, sick bod. His face is like cute. I don't know. He looks he looks like a kid. I don't know. What we do know about Luigi Mangione is that he was an Ivy League graduate and attended a private all-boys high school in Baltimore, where his wealthy family is prominent in the real estate business, and that he was charged on Monday with second-degree murder. And we're going to get more into that in just a second. So another part of the conversation was his back pain. I will say, and again, this was not confirmed when I did the joke originally, and I'm not obsessed with my own joke. I just thought it was a really interesting launch pad for this conversation of the rate at which information travels and our obsession with getting off topic, right? So his back pain, that seems to be a little bit more verified from his own writings, that he was in intense back pain before the surgery, but it actually seems that the surgery did work, right? So I would have, if I was writing the joke today, I would have flipped it to be like, he was in pain previously. I would have you could restructure it a little bit. But it seems like the surgery did in fact work, and his back pain did go away, which is why he was able to then assassinate a CEO. Because I was thinking, I was like, that guy runs pretty good for someone with back pain, What is confirmed, then he had to ride a bike, and that would be pretty hard on your back if your back hurt. What is confirmed is prior to the assassination of Brian Thompson, Luigi Mangione had been missing for months, okay? So much so that his family couldn't get a hold of him, and they actually had hired a private investigator to locate him. He was gone for like 6 months. The day before he was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania at the McDonald's, the FBI interviewed his mother, and she goes, yeah, I could see him doing this. I could see him killing a CEO. So there is part of this storyline that he went through with this assassination to vindicate his mom and health issues that she was going through. But again, if anyone has more verified sources, like I could not find them. And it just, to me, if like you're so worried about the health of your mother, you don't disappear and make her worried sick for 6 months. Like, again, I also think he was suffering from mental health issues, which is not really being discussed here. He's not just this, hero. I do think that he is suffering from mental health issues that make him believe this is something he needed to do and that it was heroic. And I'm not even arguing that. I wouldn't say it's heroic, but I would say I get it. That's like my feedback. Like, that's my response to this. I wouldn't call this guy a hero, but I would go, I get it. He made a statement that needed to be stated. So I completely understand what he did. Mangione graduated from UPenn in 2020, again, Ivy League school. He achieved a Bachelor of Science in Engineering with a major in computer science and a minor in mathematics. He also received a Master of Science in Engineering the same year with a major in computer and information science, a university spokesperson told Business Insider. Before that, he attended Gilman School, an elite all-boys prep school in Baltimore, which could also make him seem, bisexual if he's not. His yearbook entry obtained by Business Insider said he was involved in robotics and Model United Nations. In his valedictorian speech, Mangione praised classmates for challenging the world and thanked parents for sending their children to the fee-paying school, which he described as far from a small financial investment. Mangione is one of 37 grandchildren of the late Nick Mangione Sr., a prominent multi-millionaire real estate developer in Baltimore. Nick Mangione Sr. had 10 children, including Louis Mangione, Luigi Mangione's father. So again, this kind of reminds me about when Gen Z made Osama bin Laden's letter to America go viral on TikTok. And then not too long after, they ended up canceling Osama bin Laden because they realized he grew up rich. This is kind of like that, It's like, who is the hero here and who is the victim? When you hear his story, you almost seem like this is a little bit of a rich brat who things have never gone wrong for, besides the back thing, which was ultimately cured with a surgery that God knows if, most regular people could afford it. We don't know. And then he thought, oh, I'm already rich. Maybe I'll be a hero too. Again, just kind of look at the whole story, right? Some of the books reviewed on Mangione's Goodreads, and we talked about Ted Kaczynski last week, but in addition, he had some health-related and back pain and healing ones, including Back Mechanic, The Secrets to a Healthy Spine Your Doctor Isn't Telling You, and Crooked, Outwitting the Back Pain Industry and Getting on the Road to Recovery. So that's that for this week. Details forthcoming. But let's stay on topic. I was so excited that we had united over in a really important conversation, and then it just turned into fodder and content. Useless fodder and content. Quick plug again for my dictator, Hannah Pendergrass. If you're in Chicago, or if you're planning a visit to Chicago and you want to get your hair did, your almighty dictator, Hannah Pendergrass, is a hairstylist and colorist based out of her own private studio salon in the West Town neighborhood of Chicago. With 9 years in the industry, Hannah specializes in hair color and extensions. She is committed to quality and sustainability, exclusively using products from Davines. Davines is a certified B Corporation with ethically produced hair care. Hannah can collaborate with you or dictate your hair goals. The choice is yours. You can book an appointment or purchase products through her Instagram, which is at hairbyhannah_Chicago. And she spells Hannah HANNAH. Or you can check out her website, hannahpendergrass.com. Her last name is spelled the way it sounds. And then let's do our weekly Wacko Patreon roll call. There are some changes, some back and forth. Sometimes people change their names. So if you are a paying subscriber to my Patreon and you're missing from the list, or I'm saying the name that you don't want to say, just shoot me an email at withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. No one's done that, but I'm just offering it up because I try really hard to keep track of people changing their tiers and subscribing, but it's a lot to look at. So shout out Dictator, Hannah Pendergrass, My Capitalist Pigs, Emily Soraulo, Rebecca _99, Hillary, Jessica Parker, Emily Aziz, Ryan Beckland, Aaron Fejas, Joy Turner, Dylan, Joe P, Nicole Perks, Elle Watson, Holly Clark, Joshua Callahan, Stephanie Anderson, Brandon Oglesby, Lauren Manu, Carrie, Caroline Bonner, Erica Backus, Lisa Oshbacher, Barbara Mondragon, Delaney Daveler, Randy Peterson, Tegan, McKenna Hansen, Leah M. Ellers, Laura Lynn Pearson, Christopher Fanguy, Nora Smark, EMC P333, Camilla Driggs, Jenny Lynn, Carolyn, Katie Robbins, Jennifer Daly, Catherine Best, Tim Ackerman, Boo Batsy, Lakin Keen, Lil Floha, Jesse Paygrain, Audra Williams, Shelby Snyder, Michael Fow, Amber Christensen, Talene Georgian, Lila Lee Soli, Bridget, Maurice James, Truggle, Brittany Gustus, Alex Hart, Sierra Mataro, and my cuties, Skylar Urito, Maria, Casey, Patrick Morrissey, Jasmine G, Kenny, Caitlin Owens, Jim Black Squirrel, Ivy Espana, Lily, Justin Choi, Tina Nelson, Brianna Middleman, Samantha Johnson, Esther Van Alst, Lauren Natinsky, Jessica Michelle, Laura Wolf, Morgan, Amanda, Elizabeth Snell, Emma Flowers, Emily, Karen Denise, Amir Hassan, Elise McCall, Long Arms Length, Sophia Tauber, Gemma James, Miranda, Emily Eckelberger, Cavs 138, Zoe Ross, Annie Green, Heidi Lundquist, Nicole, Carl Murphy, Margarita Cranova, Beth Brunner, Lauren Moorkill, Chris Gordon, Tori Colster, Desiree Coutinho, Kristen Hood, Sammy Lane, Ms. Mack, Emily LaFontano, and Fright Lab. If you want to sign up for the Patreon, it's www.patreon.com/withoutaCountry. There's tiers as low as $6 a month. It's a great holiday gift for yourself or for someone you love who needs, maybe loves the news or needs to get more into it, but finds regular news kind of depressing. Now let's move on to Girl.
Hold on. Just a couple things. One, we got a super chat from YSL Lola. Says Corinne, the best Story Wars guest in quite some time. One of the best Story Wars guests.
That's so sweet. Oh, yeah, I did. When does Story Wars come out? Do you know?
I believe the one you did comes out on Monday.
Yeah, so I did a really fun show hosted by Louis J.
It comes out on YouTube on Friday. Sorry.
This Friday?
Yeah.
So I did a really fun show on Sunday that it usually tapes on Wednesdays, which is why they've asked me before a couple times because Alex Scarlato, who used to be a producer on this show, Mike's fiance, and she produces the show, and they've asked me a couple times, but I always wanted to be here with you guys, so they were doing a Sunday pre-tape for the holidays, so I got to be a guest on the show. It's hosted by Louis J. Gomez and Big J. Okerson. It's a storytelling game show where you have to submit stories ahead of time as a guest, and then you guys have to we have to guess whose stories we're hearing. It was so fun. I had a great time. So check that out on YouTube on Friday for sure. So the super chat, was that a tip for?
That was you.
Oh, for me.
It was you just saying you're incredibly funny and
that's so nice.
Great on a storytelling show.
Appreciate
when
that.
people let you talk. Tell a couple of stories. It's nice. And then we have a caller on the line. It is Leslie calling from Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
And she is wondering about an odd distinction about Luigi Mangione.
Okay.
And some other stuff that's in the news. So,
okay.
Leslie, are you there?
Leslie from Canada.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hey, Corinne. Mike kind of peer pressured me in the chat to call in with this question because I kind of posed it. And so I gave in. So I just wanted to know from your words, I guess, what the distinction is. Why is what he did an act of terrorism versus a mass shooting not an act of terrorism? And I'm sorry if you already talked about that already, but I'm just, as a Canadian up here, just wondering, why is he a terrorist, but somebody who goes in and shoots up a school is not considered an act of terrorism?
Great question. I mean, I'm sure we've I don't think we've talked about it like point blank like that before, but we definitely have talked about terrorism a lot on this show, what the word means. And that's how we kind of we have a saying on this show, terrorism is in the eye of the beholder. And that goes not just for American terrorism, it goes for everything. I mean, I think it's very much, I would say the reason that school shootings aren't considered terrorism is because of the NRA, the National Rifle Association, which is very powerful here in the States. But Mike, I feel like, have we started to call mass shootings acts of terrorism? I thought like one of the supermarket ones, the guy got called a terrorist finally after a lot of public outcry. Am I hallucinating?
I think that was the Buffalo one because I'm very close to the Buffalo border.
I think every now and then someone gets called it, but I mean, like, yes, the American citizens have been calling for these people to be called terrorists for quite some time. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money and power in protecting guns in the United States, and so that's what that is about. And obviously, a lot of times it lies in racism, like when the shooter is white. I mean, the United States doesn't often use the word terrorist on white people, quite frankly.
Right.
Yeah, Mike, you have info?
So I'm looking here. It seems like there's been a number of pieces of legislation brought up to classify some of these acts as terrorism.
Domestic terrorism, correct? Yeah.
Right. I think the opposition is that essentially the only thing you'd be doing at that point is allowing for more government overreach to, keep tabs on people. If it's easier to label someone as a quote-unquote potential domestic terrorist.
That's a good point.
It's a big loophole for the NSA to just wiretap everybody's phones.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not sure, Leslie, if you heard our episode last week. We talked a lot about surveillance, Ronan Farrow.
Yes. And interestingly, I was listening to that podcast, and then I got in my junk mail from, what was it, Pegasus?
Yeah,
was that
Pegasus.
What it was called?
Yeah,
Pegasus. And I was like, from my email saying, listen, you pervert. And it gave me this whole spiel about how I was hacked with spyware.
Whoa.
And that was literally right after I listened to your podcast on it.
Yeah, I mean, our phones are no doubt listening to us, but that's good because that is, and what Mike just said, I actually, I'm going to defend not calling people terrorists because of the surveillance aspect. I think that is actually positive. One thing that I think is pretty strong in America is that we really do fight back against people like this big brother, like people being able to look into our private life and us having really a lot of autonomy as citizens. So I think that is good. But yes, there has been a ton of public outcry. And I think depending on, where you're reading, some people have started to call these mass shooters domestic terrorists. And certainly, colloquially on social media, they will be referred to by American citizens as domestic terrorists. But I think, yes, it's a little bit of all those three things then. It's a little bit of what being labeled a terrorist means. I mean, a great example is when, the comedian Kathy Griffin was labeled basically, she wasn't labeled a terrorist, but she was put on the no-fly list by Donald Trump. If you saw this, the 3-hour stand-up show she did after that happened, I mean, it changed her entire life for that period of time.
I know. I just listened to a podcast where she was on it talking about she's doing a show and just talking about her tour and what she's kind of gone through. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Even if I do urge people, even if they're not a fan of Kathy Griffin's work, I think it's a really interesting and important story. I mean, of censorship, of America, of Donald Trump using his power in ways that are completely unnecessary and out of line, of the dangers of being a female comedian, So I think that those three things summarize the answer for you. Thank you for calling. Thanks for listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks for pressuring me into doing this.
No problem. Yeah, Mike. Love it. All right. Well, we didn't have anything that I felt like we needed to cover from the Wacko mailbag this week. So I actually wanted to continue a discussion that Mike and I had a little bit. I think it was on air. I can't remember if it was on air or off air about population decline. So Mike, you seemed very adamant that you think population decline is like a really bad thing, like the end of society. And for me, it seems like we don't have enough for the people that are alive now. It might relieve some of those pressures. And I found information to back both our points of view, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that because we really didn't get into it last week.
Well, no, I mean, it's a trend I've noticed just looking up stories for other shows. And it's like, I mean,
what do you mean? The trend is population decline, or the trend is
decline.
people liking population?
No.
Okay.
Population decline being a massive problem for governments around the world.
Oh, okay.
And like the incentive programs that they're rolling out in Japan and Korea for people of breeding age to move to the country to possibly, find a wife or find a husband in the country and help with their population decline. I'm seeing stuff like in Korea, you can if you get married and start a family, the government will give you like $50,000 or something to like build your life together if you produce a child like in the first year of marriage. Like there is real incentives with fiat currency that governments are using to get people to procreate. And that to me is like, I don't know, that's kind of a red flag of like, this is actually a way bigger, like governments don't just give out money for nothing. You know what I mean?
But at the same time, with someone with like, for you who is rather distrusting of government in general, like, couldn't it also be a red flag, like what's in it for it, like what's in it for the government, like it is easier to control people when they are bogged down with the responsibilities of marriage and parenthood. I mean, I think there's different perspectives here, because to me, like, I agree with you, governments don't just shell out money, but it doesn't necessarily mean like, because a lot of the things I was reading about why it's a problem is basically because like then we won't have enough workers, because it's like as the population increases, the like infrastructure of that country then starts to match the amount of people that are in that country, and then you need that amount of workers to keep that infrastructure at the level that it's at, and then so when it declines, we don't have enough workers to uphold the existing infrastructure. That's basically how I understood it. As there was other reasons why it's negative, but that was like the most important like fiscal reason, and certainly like in a capitalist society, I would say that's it.
I'm looking at it from beyond like a civilization view. I'm looking at it from like an evolutionary view. Like, why are we as human beings, seemingly across the board, worldwide, deciding that there doesn't need to be more of us? Like, no species stops procreating. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because we have the ability to critically think in a way that other species don't. And I mean, I think there's two main reasons. Number one is a fiscal reason. People don't have enough money, and it's so expensive. And I mean, this is a little bit more American centric right now, but this is the American reasons. And then two is certainly feminism. Women have finally started speaking out about the dangers of childbirth, how hard it is to be a mom, how they don't feel supported by their spouses and by their government and society, and men are like treating us bad, like, because this is like a rather heterosexual urge. Not that gay people aren't having families, but like you see it more as something that like really seems to like weigh on heterosexual people, and like women just were like, yeah, we're like, you're not treating us nicely, like we're not gonna have a family with you. I think those are the two reasons for sure.
Look, I mean, people have been around for thousands and thousands of years, right? Like the 4B movement it dates back, thousands of years or whatever. Like women, like this concept of feminism.
It's a new wave, though, and the particular conversation about motherhood, I have not seen in my lifetime the way I've seen it now, about how hard it is and how mentally and physically draining it is.
Regardless, there's something like it. To me, it screams like we've hit a certain phase of evolution that like we're no longer kind of necessary. You know what I mean? We built the AI. That's the next step of civilization on this planet.
I was literally at the OBGYN today, and I obviously we have conversations, at my age of 39 often about, they love, of having kids, and it's fine. They can talk about it with me, but like, and I said, yeah, I probably don't want to have, I don't think I want to have kids. And the OBGYN nurse literally said to me, why, which number one, I thought was a wild medical response because it's not medical at all. But then as the conversation conversation went on, I realized it was just because she was curious. And I think she kind of started to picture her life without kids because she told me that she had kids when she was 20 and she had no idea how hard it was going to be. And like her kid, you know, she's 40 now and her kid is the same age that she was when she had the kid. And I think she was just really having kind of a bit of an existential crisis. And to me, it's just like, I mean, when people, I would ask the same question when people say you're gonna have kids, like why? And like I don't mean it in a snotty way. I truly am like curious to hear people's reasons on why they want to procreate. Like it can't be just the want to nurture because there are so many children in foster care who need homes. I mean, I've thought that since I was a little girl. I can see it. Like, I think like to me, the strongest reason that, you know, when I think about procreating is like, it's the ultimate like act of love and commitment between people. Like if you're talking about, you know, heterosexual, like actually making the child together. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see like, I don't think the world's a very nice place. I don't think we treat each other very nice. I don't think we treat animals very nice. I don't think we treat the environment very nice. So it seems like you're making a being who's then going to have to go through all of this. And why? I
bet you your worldview on all of that would change if you were holding your child in your arms.
Oh my God, that's such a dad response.
No, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. Like I see the good in people significantly more than I did before I had a child.
I see the good in people a lot. I don't feel like that I need to make a person to see the good in people. That's like kind of just like recalibrating your mind. I often see the good in people I see the good in people when you volunteer, or like, you know, follow good news movement on Instagram. It's not the bad people don't go away. And again, like, you know, obviously if I had a kid, I would love the shit out of it and devote my entire life to the kid. Like that's not a question. I just don't. It's like I just don't see like the point. I mean, this is kind of more of like a guys we fuck conversation now. But yeah, so for population decline, I think those are some of the reasons. And I think also like mental health. I think a lot of people are depressed. And I think a lot of people share this kind of thing of like, yeah, like I don't love the world. I mean, and yet another school shooting this week. I mean, that was another thing. Like I can't imagine sending my kid to school with all the school shootings that happen. Let's see.
Oh, but I'm crazy for homeschooling.
I didn't say I didn't say you were crazy about isn't like protecting. I just think it's going to be wildly difficult to give your child the level of education that they need. And many homeschoolers wrote in and said at a certain point they were unable to do that. Yeah, I think you can do grammar school, no problem. I think you can handle that.
I don't know. I'm trying to prodigy out, dude. My homeschooling is going to be like Billie Eilish. Yo, you want to learn drums today? Cool.
I actually think that's a really good idea to cater the program to your child's interests. I wish I could have spent a lot more time being an artist and a lot less time learning geometry, which I will never use. And it also say when you look up underpopulation, it also says that population decline can cause internal population pressures that then lead to secondary effects such as ethnic conflict, forced refugee flows, and hyper-nationalism. And that's on top of the, you know, working and infrastructure thing. But I also found an interesting article from Scientific American that said, and this is from May 4th, 2023, and it's an opinion piece, just so you guys know. But this is Population Decline Will Change the World for the Better by Stephanie Feldstein. A future with fewer people offers increased opportunity and a healthier environment. And that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, it just like feels like more people can perhaps not be impoverished, although then if we don't have enough people to work the infrastructure, I'm not really sure. Again, no, I'm just kind of something I was like interested in and wanted to look more into it. I think it would certainly lighten the load on our environment. I think that's pretty for certain. China's population has fallen after decades of sky-high growth. This major shift in the world's most populous country would be a big deal by itself, but China's hardly alone in its declining numbers, despite the momentous occasion of the global population surpassing 8 billion late last year. The United Nations predicts dozens of countries will have shrinking populations by 2050. I think for America specifically, I think they were saying 2080. So like, you know, not really our thing. This is good news, considering no other large animals population has grown as much, as quickly, or as devastatingly for other species as ours. We should all be celebrating population decline. Declining populations will ease the pressure 8 billion people put on the planet. As the this is a good, we even saw how the planet started to heal during COVID because we just like weren't out and about, you know? As a population and sustainability director at the Center for Biological Diversity, I've seen the devastating effects of our ever-expanding footprint on global ecosystems. But if you listen to economists and Elon Musk, you might believe falling birth rates mean the sky is falling, as fewer babies mean fewer workers and consumers driving economic growth. But there's more to the story than dollars. Where our current model of endless growth and short-term profits sacrifices vulnerable people and the planet's future, population decline could help create a future with more opportunity and a healthy, biologically rich world. We're at a crossroads and we decide what happens next. We can maintain the economic status quo and continue to pursue infinite growth on a finite planet, or we can heed the warning signs of a planet pushed to its limits, put the brakes on environmental catastrophe, and choose a different way to define prosperity that's grounded in equity and a thriving natural world. Every person on the planet needs food, water, energy, and a place to call home. And if we want to increase wealth equity and quality of life, as we should, the demands per person will increase, even with the best case scenario for sustainable development. For example, as China grew in population and wealth, so did its demands on the planet. China's per capita environmental footprint is less than half of the U.S., but the country's total environmental footprint is twice as large, with the nation responsible for 1/4 of imported deforestation and 1/3 of global greenhouse emissions. Reducing consumption in high-income countries is necessary, but insufficient on its own if global population continues to rise. As the human population has doubled over the past 50 years, wildlife populations have plummeted by an average of 69%, which is disgusting. We've already altered at least 70% of Earth's land, with some reports putting that number at 97%. I could cry. Our activities have driven wildlife from their homes and destroyed irreplaceable ecosystems. The loss of biodiversity is tragic in itself. A world without elephants, hellbender salamanders, and the million other species at risk of extinction in the coming decades would be deeply impoverished. Wild plants and animals enrich our lives and hold vital ecosystems together. The fresh water we need to survive, the plants we rely on for food and medicine, and the forests we depend on for clean air and carbon sequestration are all the product of complex interactions between life forms ranging from microbes and pollinators to carnivores and scavengers. When even a single thread is pulled from the tapestry, the entire system can unravel. For those more worried about economics than life on Earth, the World Bank estimates that ecosystem collapse could cost $2.7 trillion a year by 2030. Deloitte recently estimated climate chaos could cost the United States alone $14.5 trillion by 2070 as we respond to the increasingly frequent and intense damage caused by extreme weather and wildfires and the threats to communities, farms, and businesses from droughts and unpredictable weather. While many assume population decline would inevitably harm the economy, researchers found that lower fertility rates would not only result in lower emissions by 2055, but a per capita income increase of 10%. Another reason, Mike, I think is like lower fertility rates, not like from the food that we eat, is poisoning us. Everyone, getting cancer, health insurance companies, if you're a woman under 40 who gets cancer that can affect your reproductive abilities, they cover egg freezing for you. Lower fertility rates also typically signal an increase in gender equality. Better educated women tend to have fewer children later in life. This slows population growth and helps reduce carbon emissions. And when women are in leadership roles, they're more likely than men to advance initiatives to fight climate change and protect nature. These outcomes are side effects of policies that are necessary regardless of their impact on population. In places where these cultural changes have happened, there's no going back. Even in China, where fertility was initially reduced by the draconian one-child policy, women don't want to give up their educational and economic freedom now that larger families are allowed. Population decline is only a threat to an economy based on growth. Shifting to a model based on degrowth and equity alongside lower fertility rates will help fight climate change and increase wealth and well-being. If populations decline, some places will have to adapt to societal aging. If we choose a deliberate decline resulting from increased well-being, then we could take the fear out of family planning and make a better future for people and the planet. We must choose. We can let the growth-based economy determine our planet's fate, or we can stop pretending that demography and ecology are two separate issues. With the first scenario, we'll find that an economy fueled by limitless population growth makes it increasingly difficult to address environmental crises. Communities are already struggling in the face of worsening droughts, extreme weather, and other consequences of climate disruption. And population pressure makes adaptation even harder. A growing population will further stress damaged ecosystems, reducing their resilience and increasing the risk of threats like pandemics, soil desertification, and biodiversity loss in a downward spiral. With the second, slow decline and all that comes with it, we can ultimately scale back our pressure on the environment, adapt to climate change, and protect enough places for imperiled wildlife to find refuge and potentially recover. And that side note, but like that's why if like, you know, I'm very pro animal, obviously, but I'm not anti-zoo. And I follow so much animal content and animal rights activist content. And so many people kind of are just like, you know, animals shouldn't be kept in cages, hard stop. But I would argue, and I've talked to people at zoos about this because I was so interested in whether or not zoos were ethically okay. And oftentimes, like with these animals, and of course there are bad zoos and there are good zoos, but often like imperiled wildlife or wildlife that can no longer live in the wild, even though they are at their core wild animals, are what zoos are really working on. And there are really great zoos that have done wonderful things to help certain animals not become extinct, rehabilitation, etc. So that's just like a side note for that, because I hate how black and white that conversation is. But despite how inevitable population decline will benefit people and the planet, world leaders have done little to prepare for a world beyond the paradigm of endless growth. They need to prepare for an aging population now while realigning our socioeconomic structures toward degrowth. Meanwhile, immigration can help soften some of the demographic blows by bringing younger people into aging countries. Governments must invest in healthcare, support caregivers, help people who want to work longer do so, and redesign communities to meet the housing, transportation, and service needs of older people. We need to take care of each other, in short. We need to move our economy toward one where people and nature can thrive. That means managing consumption, prioritizing social and environmental welfare over profits, valuing cooperation, and recognizing the need for a range of community-driven solutions. These practices already exist in mutual aid programs and worker-owned cooperatives, but they must become the foundation of our economy rather than the exception. We also need to bring together the reproductive rights and gender equity movements and the environmental movement. Environmental toxicity, reproductive health, and wildlife protection are deeply intertwined. Pollution, climate change, and degraded ecosystems harm pregnant people, fetuses, and children, and make it difficult to raise safe and healthy families. Finally, we need what the United Nations' most recent climate and biodiversity reports drive home, and conservationists, climate scientists, and policymakers have demanded for decades: a rapid, just transition to renewable energy and sustainable food systems, and a global commitment to halting human-caused extinctions now. Population stabilization and decline will inevitably be achieved by centering human rights. Policymakers must guarantee bodily autonomy and access to reproductive health care, gender equity, and women's and girls' education. By addressing the crises in front of us, empowering everyone to decide if and when to have children, and planning for population decline, we can choose a future of sustainable abundance. And a reminder, this is an opinion and an analysis article, and the views expressed by the author or authors are not necessarily those of Scientific American. But I think it was a really interesting piece. brought up some interesting points, and I was very interested and intrigued by Mike and I's little back and forth about population decline last week, and so I took the time this week to look into it a little bit more and share that with you. So that was kind of like the pro and con of this week, since we didn't do a wacko mailbag. Now,
do you? So. Like the part of that when I kind of checked out is when she started like reading stuff from World Bank and the World Economic Forum.
Okay.
Because their stated goal for the last, like, back even before the pandemic, right, was like, we need to decrease population. We need walkable cities, right? And like their whole motto kind of is like, you will own nothing.
World Bank, you will own nothing.
Kinda. Like that's been their whole vibe for the last maybe 15, 20 years.
And how does that behoove them?
What do you mean? If you own nothing.
They own you mean the banks own everything?
They own everything.
Yeah.
You rent from them, you pay them. Like the entire world becomes a subscription model where they are Netflix. And you have to subscribe if you want to walk on their streets, or drive your car. Like we're already seeing that, right? Like getting taxed into oblivion with everything that you're doing. I want to talk about draconian. Kathy Hochul making it $9 to come and to go to work. It's crazy.
People are very upset about that.
Yeah,
yes.
obviously, but it's like that whole idea of like, okay, we're the people in power. We control all the money. Now we're going to slowly but surely through private equity holdings buy up all the land. We're going to make it illegal for you to have a farm, which they're working on that, by the way. That's like that legislation has been drafted where, people who, if you own a chicken, if you own, I think 3 chickens, you need to register with the UK government. Like slowly but surely they're making it so you will not be able to own land. You will not be able to self-sustain. You won't be able to farm. You will be reliant on the government and the World Bank no matter what.
Well, we saw I mean, like that's interesting. The farm conversation that they're trying to make it illegal to own a small farm because everything, they want to make everything owned by like a couple big corporations, which kind of links into the conversation that we had regarding Luigi Mangione and his family owning a couple of rehabilitation centers, and how I compared that to the plot line of 6 Feet Under and owning funeral homes, and they were trying to like buy them out basically. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't. Okay, we might skip ahead to this. This is an interactive opinion, but it can't interact on it. The New York Times website is truly, I don't know how much bandwidth they use on this site, but it is wild. All right, I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, so speaking of privatizing, one of the most alarming things I heard this week regarding Donald Trump is that he was interested in privatizing the U.S. Postal Service. And as we know from private prison systems and additional conversations about privatization and monetizing things that should be available to everyone in a country, I think this is bad. This is from the Washington Post. Trump eyes privatizing U.S. Postal Service, citing financial losses. Trump feuded with the mail agency in his first term. Privatizing it could shake up consumer shipping and business supply chains. And, Jeff Bezos, kind of famously basically created his own U.S. Postal Service, which is the part of the success or, most of the success of Amazon. So this is very interesting because to me, this is very much like billionaire business person thinking, right? President-elect Donald Trump has expressed a keen interest in privatizing the U.S. Postal Service in recent weeks, 3 people with knowledge of the matter said, a move that could shake up consumer shipping and business supply chains and push hundreds of thousands of federal workers out of the government. Trump has discussed his desire to overhaul the Postal Service at his Mar-a-Lago estate with Howard Lutnick, his pick for Commerce Secretary and the co-chair of his presidential transition, the People said. Earlier this month, Trump also convened a group of transition officials to ask for their views on privatizing the agency, one of the People said. Told of the mail agency's annual financial losses, Trump said the government should not subsidize the organization, the People said. The People spoke on the condition of anonymity to reflect private conversations. Trump's specific plans for overhauling the Postal Service were not immediately clear, but he feuded with the nation's mail carrier as president in 2019, trying to force it to hand over key functions, including rate setting, personnel decisions, labor relations, and managing relationships with its largest clients to the Treasury Department. The government is slow, decades slow on adopting new ways of doing things, and there's a lot of other carrier services that became legal in the 70s that are doing things so much better with increased volumes and reduced costs, said Casey Mulligan, who served as a top economist in the first Trump administration. We didn't finish the job in the first term, but we should finish it now. The postal system is older than the nation itself, founded in 1775 with Benjamin Franklin as its chief, revitalized with free rural delivery at the start of the 20th century, then transformed into a financially self-sustaining agency in 1970 designed to bind the nation together through the mail. Even through financial challenges wrought by the rise of the internet, the Postal Service has remained one of Americans' most beloved federal agencies, second only to the National Park Service in a 2024 Pew Research Center study. But, and if you're talking about mailing like big packages, USPS is still the way to go. It's so much cheaper than UPS or FedEx. Anytime I mail something at UPS or FedEx, I almost drop to the floor when they give me the price. But as congressional Republicans and others in Trump's orbit have clamored in recent weeks for federal cost cutting, the Postal Service has emerged as a prominent target. People who will work on the Department of Government Efficiency, a non-governmental panel led by tech entrepreneurs Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, have also held preliminary conversations about major changes to the Postal Service, said two other people familiar with the matter, who also spoke on the condition of anonymity to reflect private talks. The Postal Service lost $9.5 billion in the fiscal year ending September 30th. Yeah, that's not good. Stung by continued declines in mail volume and a slower than anticipated parcel shipping business, even as it made major new investments in modernized facilities and equipment. The agency faces nearly $80 billion in liabilities, according to its annual financial report. Cuts to the Postal Service could upend the trillion-dollar e-commerce industry, hitting small businesses and rural consumers whose businesses and budgets make the agency the shipper of choice. Amazon, the Postal Service's largest customer, uses the agency for last mile delivery. Okay, so it's like he created his own thing, but then they are still intertwined. Uses the agency for last mile delivery between its hulking product fulfillment centers and consumers' homes and businesses. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. They just need to let you know that. And the agency's universal service obligation, which requires it to deliver mail or parcels regardless of distance or profitability concerns, means it is often the only carrier that will deliver to far-flung reaches of the country. Attempts to privatize one of the most prominent parts of the federal government could spark a political backlash, especially for Republicans representing rural districts that the agency disproportionately serves. Federal officials from Alaska, for example, often invite postal executives to the last frontier to see how crucial the Postal Service is to the state's economy. Responding to inquiries about privatizing the agency, a Postal Service spokesperson said the agency's 10-year modernization plan has led it to cut 45 million work hours in the past 3 years and reduce spending on transportation by $2 billion. The agency is also seeking regulatory approval to alter its mail processing and delivery timetables to better align with private sector practices, the spokesperson said in a statement. The United States Postal Service is already engaged in an initiative to ensure that we can provide provide our customers with a high level of service to every delivery address in the nation at least 6 days a week in an efficient and financially sustainable fashion as required by law, the agency's statement said. Trump has long had a tense relationship with the mail agency. He once derided it from the Oval Office as a joke and in a social media post as Amazon's delivery boy. In the early days of the coronavirus pandemic, Trump threatened to withhold emergency assistance from the Postal Service unless it quadrupled package prices, and his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, authorized a loan for the mail agency only in exchange for access to its confidential contracts with top customers. Ahead of the 2020 election, Trump said the Postal Service was incapable of facilitating mail-in voting because the agency could not access the emergency funding he was blocking. The Postal Service ultimately delivered 97.9% of ballots from voters to election officials within 3 days. When he returns to office, Trump could have several options to exert control over the mail agency, though he may not have the authority to unilaterally privatize it. And again, they kind of hid it in there, but does it all go back to like an old piece of resentment that he has? The Postal Service has 3 vacancies on its 9-member governing board. Among sitting members, 3 are Republicans and 2 of those are Trump appointees. Biden has 3 pending nominees, but the Senate does not appear poised to confirm them before Trump's inauguration. Significantly narrowing the universal service obligation, which had been recommended by officials during Trump's first term, would probably require an act of Congress. If approved, the Postal Service would almost immediately be required to scale back delivery service to unprofitable areas and downsize its staff of roughly 650,000 employees. Cutting off the agency's access to the loans from the Treasury Department, as the first Trump administration attempted, could quickly stifle the Postal Service, preventing it from making its biweekly payroll and financing its facility and equipment maintenance. At the end of the day, the Postal Service is going to need money. It's going to need assistance, or it's going to have to come up with some radical, draconian measures to break even in the near term. Draconian is the word of the day, said Paul Stadler, who studies the Postal Service and supply chains at the Right of Center Lexington Institute. God, there's a job for any interest. That gives both the White House and Congress an awful lot of power and an awful lot of leeway here. Democrats are already warning of potential cuts to the nation's mail carrier. With much more runway ahead of them, they may very well focus on the privatization, and I think that's our big fear. That could have disastrous consequences because when you go private, the profit motive is everything. Representative Jerry Connolly, Democrat Virginia, a leading postal backer, told The Post. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Georgia, the incoming chair of the House's DOJ Oversight Committee, excoriated the Postal Service in a social media post Tuesday, writing, "This is what happens when government-run entities are bloated, mismanaged, and unaccountable." Also this week, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy faced sharp questioning from Republicans during a hearing Tuesday. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, warned DeJoy that next year's Congress could seek to overhaul the mail service. Republicans asked repeatedly about clawing back funding for the agency's new fleet of electric delivery trucks. And if you've been kind of following that, it's like they pumped all this money into them, but they haven't put them out on the streets yet, mounting financial losses and about what executive actions Trump could take to bring the service to heel. The days of bailouts and handouts are over. The American people spoke loud and clear. I worry about that EV money sitting around, that it may be clawed back. I think there are lots of areas where there's going to be significant reform over the next 4 years, Comer said. There are lots of ideas. I don't know if they'll be advantageous or not to the Postal Service that are out there about significant changes. Again, I just thought that was really interesting. What do we really know about the Postal Service, But we often talk on this show about privatization and how it usually doesn't make things better. We see that prisons, healthcare. What are you nodding your head about, Michael?
I mean, that's a wild false equivalency to say privatization is a bad thing when time and time again private business outpaces the government 2 to 1. I mean,
outpaces, but this is something that is like basically like this is something that every American needs, like healthcare or like prison if you're a bad boy.
I mean, privatized prisons account for like 5% of all the prisons in America. So that's actually a non-starter. You can look that up.
Okay, I will be looking that up.
But no, I mean,
and we saw how they would profit when Trump came into office.
Yeah, but that's not it's not the prisons themselves. That's the people who make stuff for those prisons. On top of that, I just think
give me an example of something that got better. I'm willing.
I mean, I did a few weeks ago, like Elon Musk made Starlink versus the amount of money that Biden wanted to spend on bringing high speed internet infrastructure to rural
I feel like
America.
That's not the same comparison.
It's 100%
I remember
the same comparison. Starlink is made to bring internet to places where it's not right now. So the idea of laying billions of dollars worth of cable across the country versus Elon just figuring out satellite internet. Significantly better.
Internet isn't a government agency, though.
What?
Internet isn't a government agency.
Okay,
though.
How about NASA calling up SpaceX and saying, "Hey, we need to get these people out of space. Elon, can you help us?"
Well, I mean, NASA is a different conversation. I love space, but I just don't really think that's what we need to be concentrating on right now.
No, but I do think you could argue the Postal Service has been, if not worse, managed than NASA. Like, I mean, look at how much money they're losing every single year, and it's supposed to be a self-sustaining, not for-profit business. But
I think 8% is for a private, or 8% of incarcerated people are held in private prisons.
Okay, I was off by 3%. And then
I'm not saying that, but that also is like not a line. I was just saying that I don't think that they got better when they were privatized, prisons. That's my argument.
I've never been to a public or a private prison, so I couldn't give you an on the ground thing. But I do think it's very funny, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, these government agencies that are wasting this money are going to be held accountable. Are you going to go after the DOD's budget? Because they can't account for $10 billion from last year.
Is Marjorie Taylor Greene going to go after them?
Yeah. I mean, she's saying, hey, we're coming after all these.
The problem with her is sometimes every now and then she makes a good point.
Right. She made a good point about the Postal Service. Hey, we're Doge. I'm leading Doge. We're going to cut the fat. There's $10 billion the DOD can't account for of taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. Are you going after them? Are you going to take away that? Or are we just going to admit that military is the only real industry we have in America anymore? And you're going to keep writing them a blank check every year?
Let's try to get Marjorie on the phone.
That'd be pretty sick.
I would actually love to have her on the show. She's a crazy bitch. All right. And then, okay. And then this next piece kind of, I guess our theme in a way today could also be privatization, because I wanted to talk a little bit more, get a little bit back on topic with the Luigi Mangione thing. This is not another story about him specifically, but it was certainly inspired by him. Also from the Washington Post. Again, some weeks I just have some more articles from a specific source because they really knock it out of the park sometimes. This is says deny and delay the practices fueling anger at U.S. health insurers. Just to get us back on topic, to remember why we all came together, but a week and a half ago. National data is hard to come by, but doctors say treatment increasingly is being delayed by demands for pre-authorization or denied outright. After United Healthcare executive was gunned down on a New York City sidewalk, an eruption of bitter online commentary celebrated the killer's presumed motive, avenging the denial and delay of health insurance coverage. And this is from December 16th, just so we're on the same page. Many spoke from personal experience. Every year, health insurance companies deny tens of millions of patient claims for medical expense reimbursements, and the tide of those denials has been rising according to surveys of doctors and other healthcare providers. Insurers also have been increasingly demanding that doctors obtain approval before providing treatment, similar surveys show, causing delays in patient care that the American Medical Association says are devastating. While several states have passed legislation trying to restrict such practices amid growing public anger, insurers defend the coverage denials and pre-authorization requirements. They say that those measures are meant to contain rising costs and that their methods comply with federal and state regulations. According to information the insurers report to regulators, there have been only small increases nationally in the frequency of denials in recent years. Most frustrating, according to patient advocates, is that insurance companies often act without explanation, sending denial letters that offer only sparse justifications. The patient gets a cryptic message saying it's not medically necessary, but without any other explanation, said Elizabeth Benjamin, a vice president at the Community Service Society in New York, which runs a program that helps consumers appeal denials. I mean, not to mention that you need a freaking UPenn degree to even understand your own health insurance. People are mad because it's all a big secret, Benjamin said. It's unfair for us as a society on something that's so visceral to trust giant corporations that make money when they deny care. This is why people are so very angry. Exactly why and how often claims are being denied or medical procedures are getting early scrutiny is difficult to know. Statistics regarding denials and pre-authorizations are scant at best, and most of what is available reflects only one state or one type of insurance. Nationally, over the last 5 years, the rates of denial have been between 14% and 16% of claims, according to data from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. At least some data, however, shows big increases. In Maryland, for example, regulators report that the number of claims denied by the insurers they regulate has risen nearly 40% since 2019. Pointing in the same direction are large majorities of doctors and other healthcare providers who report that insurers are denying more claims and imposing more pre-authorization requirements. For example, a 2024 survey conducted by Experian Health indicated that 73% of healthcare providers said that claim denials are increasing. An American Medical Association survey similarly found that almost 3/4 of physicians said that denials of pre-authorization requests for treatment have increased over the past 5 years. The most common feelings I see are frustration and a sense of powerlessness, said William Bennett, an associate professor at the Indiana University School of Medicine who studies patient experiences and treats children with chronic illnesses. Patients have a relationship with their doctor. Their doctors know them. Their doctors are experts in their disease. And then for some reason that is never explained, the recommended care is denied. Or like you'll be going to a doctor for years. And this has happened to me with both of my main doctors. And then all of a sudden they won't accept your insurance anymore because of whatever, they're not getting the money, whatever's going on. And then, in both instances, just made the decision to stay with both of these doctors because they've known me for years and it took me so long to find good ones. But not everyone is in a financial place to do that. I mean, I went to the OBGYN today, paid out of pocket. They don't accept my insurance. My annual is $400, which I don't think is crazy. But, I also go to specialists for my autoimmune disorder, and those are certainly higher. But for a heads up, if you are self-paying or if you want to continue going to a doctor who doesn't accept your insurance anymore, you can negotiate with the doctor. You can say, "Hey, I'm self-paying." Most people most doctors will offer a negotiated rate, or you can negotiate with them. Like one of my doctors, he just likes me, I think, and so he kind of adjusts it to make it the cheapest that he can without him losing money on the visit. Insurance industry representatives blame doctors for many of the denials, saying they botched the required paperwork by submitting inaccurate, incomplete, or ineligible claims forms. Again, just little things like this. In a statement last week, United Health said the company's insurance division pays about 90% of medical claims when they're submitted. Of the remainder that undergo additional review, only 0.5% are due to medical or clinical reasons, United Health said. AHIP, a National Association of Health Insurers, also issued a statement regarding denials, saying that health plans are working to protect patients from the full impact of rising costs while connecting them to care that is safe, evidence-based, and coordinated. Healthcare providers have decried the requirements for prior authorization, which oblige doctors to request the insurer's approval before providing patients with certain medical procedures and drugs. According to an AMA survey, nearly a quarter of physicians reported that these requirements led to an adverse event for a patient, and more than 9 in 10 physicians said the practice causes treatment delays. More than a quarter said their prior authorization requests were often or always denied. In response to such concerns, state legislatures have passed a raft of legislation. In 2024 alone, 10 states have passed bills aiming to cut what the AMA says is the growing volume of such requirements, to shorten the delays they cause, or to increase public reporting of data and procedures. Only a small minority of patients appeal health coverage decisions, according to the state and federal statistics. Many are daunted by the complexity of the medical terminology and the insurance bureaucracy. That's for sure. You start looking into it, you go, I have a headache. It's hard to fight a big insurance company, said Larry Levitt, executive vice president of KFF, a nonprofit health policy research and polling organization. To even begin, you need to understand the gobbledygook and the paperwork. It's hard to make heads or tails of it. In the Affordable Care Act, Congress authorized the establishment of consumer assistance programs in the states to help people appeal denials of insurance coverage, but it has provided no funding for them in recent years. Even so, many states have set up offices to help. Recent cases tackled by the Maryland Attorney General testify to the range of arguments patients can have with their insurers. One patient experienced 30% visual impairment from eyelid inflammation and loose skin, but the insurer deemed the recommended surgery cosmetic and refused to pay. A 12-year-old received daily injections for a growth hormone deficiency for 3 years, but in the 4th year, the insurer deemed the shots not medically necessary and refused to pay. A patient having surgery to repair a broken clavicle unexpectedly needed work to repair a torn vein, but the insurer refused to pay for the extra procedure. These denials would have forced each of those patients to pay thousands of dollars more than expected for needed care. After Maryland officials intervened, each of those consumers prevailed. Last year, consumers in Maryland filed 11,466 challenges to denials. When a denial is challenged, consumers prevail about half the time, according to statistics from the state attorney general's office. So that's very interesting. I think that statistic, I think we should all really keep that in our minds. So it's basically they're going to deny you initially because it's going to save them money, and they're going to see if you're going to be the squeaky wheel or if you're not going to be the squeaky wheel. And we remember the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So then you challenge it, and it's then they see, oh, this is a person who's going to fight back. This is going to take time. This is going to take our money. Maybe it will be in our best interest to just let this one go, right? 50% of the time consumers prevail. That's an interesting stat. But in Maryland, as in other states with programs to aid patients, officials say few consumers know that they can appeal a coverage denial, let alone that there is a program that can help them do so. We would love for more people to take advantage of this program, said Marie Grant, Maryland's acting insurance commissioner. Insurance is inherently complicated, and I deeply understand the frustration here, but people don't have to be alone in this journey. So again, because states often run like mini countries in America, if you're in the States, you can look up Google your state program to appeal coverage denial. See, I've saved a lot of money and found out a lot of things just kind of by looking up. I'm like, does this exist? Does this exist? Use the internet for good, not for spreading a rumor that Luigi Mangione is bisexual. Ooh, this is an interesting story. So I don't know how many of you guys remember Crystal Mangum. I believe that's how her last name is. But this is the Duke Lacrosse player's case. This was a big case in my life. God, I'm trying to remember what year this even went down, and I would if the New York Post would load. What are you laughing at?
I remember being at my cousin's wedding, and the best man gets up and is like, yeah, I remember we were playing lacrosse at Duke, and my brother and I looked at each other and feverishly started Googling to figure out if he was on that team.
Oh, really? Was he?
No, he was not. It was a couple of years before he was there.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't even like say Duke Lacrosse to a millennial or anyone older and us not like knowing exactly what is going on. Sorry, guys, reopening my browser. Why would anything work? Why would anything work? It's not even letting me open Safari now. Great. Okay. Please hold, everybody. Please hold. 1 second. How many things can I open? Oh my God, why is Safari not opening? I mean, I guess I might just do the rest of the show from my phone. That'll be fun. Okay, we're gonna solve this without. All right, now this is getting into the Duke Lacrosse case. Boy, please update. Can you pull it up on here, Mike? Nothing is updating here in this basement warehouse that I am in.
Got it up.
Okay. What's the Duke Lacrosse rape hoax? Accuser's confession teaches a lot. Okay, I'm gonna match it. I found it on a different thing, which is gonna be a problem for the rest of the show. But okay, so the name of this article is, and this is an opinion from the New York Post. Duke Lacrosse rape hoax accuser's confession teaches a lesson the left won't learn. I thought this was an interesting op-ed because it's from the right and because it falls into this like how many lessons does the left need to learn before we start making some changes from the inside, right? So if you guys don't know, this is Crystal Mangum. She lied about being sexually assaulted by Duke Lacrosse players, raped at a party in 2006. And then on a true crime podcast recently, she was like, I made this whole thing up. So the left can't stop hitching its narrative to bogus stories. Late last week, Crystal Mangum, the accuser at the center of the notorious Duke Lacrosse rape hoax, admitted for the first time that she lied about being brutally assaulted by David Evans, Colin Finnerty, and Reed Seligman at a party in 2006. From prison, where she's serving time for murdering her boyfriend in 2011, Mangum asked for the three men's forgiveness. I feel like she doesn't like guys, you know? I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong. She's not the only one who should be groveling. At the time of the trial, Evans, Finnerty, and Seligman were mercilessly dragged through the mud by rabid progressives with an axe to grind. The players had the audacity to be well-off, white, and male. We don't love that as a society unless you're Luigi Mangione. The media responded like sharks to a bucket of chum, framing the young man as vicious, racist, misogynistic monsters. But it's also kind of groundbreaking that in 2006, we believed a black woman accusing people of rape. Like, there's two levels there. We usually don't believe women to begin with in 2006, and then another layer, black woman, and then third layer, sex worker. Duke professor Houston A. Baker Jr. decried the drunken white male privilege loosed among us. District Attorney Mike Nifong proclaimed them guilty and the crime racially motivated months before even interviewing Mangum. He was later disbarred for withholding evidence that showed no DNA from any of the three men was found on the victim. When the three men were exonerated, there was no self-reflection from the out for blood hoax enablers, much less a mea culpa. Don't expect one now. Progressives in and out of the media have learned nothing. On December 5th, migrant teen Yeremi Kalino was fatally stabbed during a street fight in Manhattan and another teen was wounded. Initial reports claimed one of the assailants asked, "Do you speak English?" before the attack. A narrative immediately emerged. This was a xenophobic, race-motivated murder prompted by right-wing coverage of the border crisis. Representative Dan Goldman called the attack racist, xenophobic hatred. Tech CEO Anil Dash blamed white supremacy. Former Assemblywoman Yoline New said the teens were stabbed because they couldn't speak English. Media coverage zeroed in on the language line and reported it as a possible hate crime. But the news broke that Kalino had ties to the Tren de Aragua-linked Los Diablos de la 42 gang, while the suspects were black and the whole thing was likely a gang beef. And there were crickets from the progressive peanut gallery. The cherry on top, there's no evidence the "do you speak English" line ever happened. This is a never-ending cycle. Partial facts or half-truths surface. The left pounces on it as proof that America is a racist, bigoted country, and then the story gets debunked. And I know you might be sitting at home thinking like, well, why would what good does it do the left to constantly have themselves proven right on this narrative that America is a racist, bigoted country? Well, because then all the stuff that they do, meaning, I don't know, post on social media, complain, makes it like that. If America is as racist and bigoted, and I mean, I argue it is in many ways, certainly. But if all these stories tie into this narrative, then then progressives can continue to look down on other people by saying, well, I don't subscribe to that. I don't do that. I'm better than you. And it's like, if we want to talk about supremacy, yes, white supremacy is a problem. I would argue progressive supremacy also a bit of a problem. So will the progs who always reach for the rage bait apologize? Will they wait for all the information next time? Not a chance. Again, like, I mean, the Duke Lacrosse story is so interesting because, like, yeah, so it got so much publicity, and then so often we don't believe women. And then one time when one woman is lying, which is still statistically very low level of probability, you know, it kind of undoes somehow, and it needn't, all the good work that we've done as a society working towards believing women. And it's unfortunate that that happens, but it is so. It is so. So that's just like really interesting. I mean, like, that's just like totally coming like full circle, I think, in many ways for me. How? Okay. I really somehow Safari will not work at all. So I am just going off of this now. The next article we will be getting into is could be worse. The German government collapsed this week. It's very hard when something goes wrong technologically when you're live streaming a show, and I don't really know. I don't really know how to help it. Okay. So what the fuck is my password? Can you pull this up, Mike? I can't get anything. Mike, I can't even get Safari to open. Okay. German government collapses at a perilous time for Europe. This is from the New York Times. I think I finally got my computer working again. It really, honestly, guys, it wouldn't be an episode. Wouldn't be an episode of Without a Country if the whole computer didn't shut down at one point. Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a confidence vote, deepening the political turbulence in one of the continent's most powerful economies. The German government collapsed on Monday. Don't read that every day. As Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a confidence vote in parliament, deepening a crisis of leadership across Europe at a time of mounting economic and security challenges. The war in Ukraine has escalated, with Russia issuing increasingly dire threats against Kyiv and its supporters. President-elect Donald J. Trump is set to take office in the United States, raising new questions over Europeans' trade relations and military defense. The government of France, Germany's partner in leading Europe, fell earlier this month, and now Europe's largest economy will be in the hands of a caretaker government ahead of elections early next year. On Monday, German lawmakers voted to dissolve the existing government by a vote of 394 to 207, with 116 abstaining. Coming just 9 months before parliamentary elections had been scheduled to happen, the vote was an extraordinary moment for Germany. The elections, now expected on February 23rd, will be only the fourth snap election in the 75 years since the modern state was founded. The moment reflects a new era of more fractious and unstable politics in a country long known for durable coalitions built on plotting consensus. Mr. Scholz had little choice but to take the unusual step of calling for the confidence vote after his three-party coalition splintered in November, ending months of bitter internal squabbling and leaving him without a parliamentary majority to pass laws or a budget. But the country's political uncertainty is likely to last a month or more, with a new permanent government not forming until parties have agreed on a coalition, probably in April or May. 7 parties will go into the campaign for parliament with a realistic chance of gaining seats, and some on the political fringes, especially on the right, are poised for strong showings, according to polls. And again, like we said, this uptick in right-leaning governments is not just America. It's happening everywhere. Mr. Scholz is widely expected to be ousted as chancellor, with polls suggesting that the conservative Christian Democrats are poised to finish first, well ahead of Mr. Scholz's Social Democrats. Look into religion, this reemergence of religion, common themes. The campaign is likely to be dominated by several issues that have vexed Europe in recent years. Both Germany and France are mired in debates over how best to revive their struggling economies, bridge growing social divides, ease voter anxieties over immigration, and buttress national defense. They and their European Union partners are looking warily toward Russia, where President Vladimir V. Putin has escalated threats about the use of nuclear weapons amid Moscow's war against Ukraine. They are also fretting over their economic relationship with China, which has grown into a formidable competitor for many of their most important industries, but has not become the booming consumer market for European products that leaders long envisioned. And they are bracing for the start of a new presidential term for Mr. Trump, who has threatened a trade war and the end of the United States' commitment to NATO, which says that he will stay in office and try to repair the deep fissures in his government over the 2025 budget. Mr. Scholz's government faced similar budget challenges, along with growing concerns about how to rebuild the German military in the face of a belligerent Russia and Mr. Trump's criticism of NATO. The German economy has stagnated, narrowly avoiding recession this fall, and its parties will spend the campaign arguing over how best to revitalize it. Disagreements over how to balance the budget and over whether to increase government borrowing or implement further austerity measures helped to deepen the fissures in Mr. Scholz's government before it split apart. It is an inopportune time for Germany to be plunged into a grueling winter election campaign and a political freeze that could last until a new government takes power. The timing is absolutely terrible for the EU. Basically, these multiple crises are hitting the EU at the worst possible time because the bloc's traditional engine is busy with itself. Jana Puglierin of the European Council on Foreign Relations said, referring to Germany and France. The war in Ukraine and the need to bolster Germany's military and what that will cost will be among the urgent issues likely to dominate the campaign, the election campaign, along with the floundering economy, failing infrastructure, immigration, and the rise of the political extremes. So again, a lot of the same challenges that we're facing in America, Germany is facing as well. Badly behind in the polls, Mr. Scholz is planning to highlight his caution in supplying Ukraine with weapons, especially sophisticated offensive hardware. Under Mr. Scholz's watch, Germany became the biggest European donor of weapons to Ukraine, according to a ranking by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, a research organization in Germany. But as some voters are growing nervous about Russia's threats, he prefers to point to his decision not to export the long-range missile system Taurus, which could have antagonized Mr. Putin. Mr. Scholz, who used his address to lawmakers just before the vote on Monday as a campaign speech, said that he had promised President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine continued support, but also made clear that he remained cautious about what Germany would deliver. "We do nothing that jeopardizes our own security," he said in the speech, which lasted nearly half an hour. "And that is why we do not supply cruise missiles, a long-range weapon that can reach deeply into Russia." The strategy appears to be working. Since the end of the three-party coalition, Mr. Scholz's personal approval ratings have risen somewhat, but his party is still polling at around 17%, about half of what the Conservatives are projected to win. Mr. Scholz will have to fight hard to persuade voters to give him another chance. For now, it is Friedrich Merz, leader of the conservative Christian Democratic Union Party and a longtime figure on the political stage, who is widely expected to be the next chancellor, given his party's strong lead in the polls. Speaking to lawmakers on Wednesday, Mr. Merz accused Mr. Scholz and his government of failing on a number of fronts. "You are leaving the country in one of the greatest economic crises in post-war history," Mr. Merz said, addressing Mr. Scholz. The two other mainstream parties are also led by well-known politicians who held important posts in the government. Christian Lindner, leader of the pro-business Free Democrats, whose falling out with the chancellor helped precipitate the collapse of the coalition, and Robert Habeck, the economic minister and lead candidate for the left-leaning Greens. But in Germany's fractious political landscape, no single party is likely to win an outright majority, and that could lead to potentially tricky negotiations to build a coalition more functional and durable than the one that failed. All the mainstream parties have said they would refuse to team up with the far-right alternative for Germany, parts of which are being monitored as a threat to the constitution by the domestic security services. Nonetheless, the party, which is known as the AfD and is polling at about 18%, appears to be gaining ground. In closely watched state elections in the east of the country in September, both the AfD and a newer extreme left party, the Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance, had their best showings ever. But mainstream parties still consider them an anathema, which has made it hard to form governing coalitions in those states. Those results could portend equally messy coalition haggling in Berlin after the parliamentary vote, though the political fringes are less popular nationally than they are in those eastern states. Given the likely vote tally, many political watchers predict a return of the grand coalition of the center between the Christian Democrats and the Progressive Social Democratic Party. That coalition governed Germany for 12 of the past 20 years. So again, could be worse, government collapsing, looking at what is happening internationally to see how it affects America and to see that, it's not just, being American and what is happening to the American government is actually, even though it can feel like an isolated experience, it is not actually an isolated experience. It's a trend that we really see happening globally, especially in places like Europe. All right. I think we have... Oh, we got to end. All right, so I'll do a quick Matt Gaetz article just because I think this is fun. This is from CNN and Reversal. Key House panel votes to release the Matt Gaetz ethics report, right? We wanted this report released. We wanted everyone's report released like Marjorie Taylor Greene threatened. But hell yeah, let's release this. This is a little treat. This is a little, you know what? We didn't win the election, but we get the Matt Gaetz report. And that to me is a holiday miracle, right? The magic of Christmas is alive and well. The House Ethics Committee secretly voted earlier this month to release its report into the conduct of former Representative Matt Gaetz before the end of this Congress, according to multiple sources with knowledge on the matter. The report is now expected to be made public after the House's final day of votes this year as lawmakers leave Washington for the holidays, the sources said.
That's hot.
The vote, which has not previously been reported, amounts to a stark reversal for the panel after it had voted along party lines in late November not to release the results of the investigation. The decision to release the report suggests that some Republicans ultimately decided to side with Democrats on the matter, and it is unclear if the committee will once again change course now that it has voted. When the committee voted last month to shelve the report, Gaetz was President-elect Donald Trump's choice to be Attorney General. Since then, Gaetz withdrew himself from consideration for the Senate-confirmed post, though he maintains frosty relations with many in his party and is still active in GOP politics. It is exceedingly rare for an ethics report to be released after a member has left Congress, which just goes to show how many people Matt Gaetz has pissed off, though it has happened on a couple of occasions in the past. The committee revisited the issues behind closed doors earlier this month after a feud over the report spilled into public view before Thanksgiving. The Ethics Committee's report concludes a years-long probe into numerous allegations against Gaetz, including whether he engaged in sexual misconduct, used illicit drugs, shared inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, misused state identification records, converted campaign funds to personal use, and or accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or impermissible gifts, according to an announcement by the panel last summer. Gaetz has vigorously denied all the allegations and has characterized the investigation as a witch hunt. In a post on X in response to CNN's reporting, Gaetz emphasized that he was fully exonerated by a separate Department of Justice probe, and he said he never had sexual contact with someone under 18, a claim that is addressed in the House Ethics report. My 30s were an era of working very hard and playing hard too. It's embarrassing, though not criminal, that I probably partied, womanized, drank, and smoked more than I should have earlier in life. I live a different life now. And I think that's super fair. And I think even though I think most of us don't like Matt Gaetz, I think that's something that I think about a lot, right? Especially with my interest in going into politics. In the current days, especially anyone young who is pursuing politics, there's going to be bad shit that you see about us online. And we just have to, and I think we've already started to do this a little bit, with easing on the cancel culture because it's absolutely not working. In fact, it is doing the opposite of its intention. It's making the whole world globally go conservative. No big deal. But we and this goes for Matt Gaetz too, because I don't know what the report says. Me thinks it's very bad. But based on this quote, right, I actually do agree with him that we are going to be. We're looking towards a future where all our political leaders will have a trail online from our teens, our 20s, and our 30s. And if you have a completely clean trail online, you are a boring follow, okay? And no one wants a boring follow, especially not the American people. Speaker Mike Johnson has said that he does not believe the report should be released since Gaetz is no longer a member of Congress after he abruptly resigned once Trump announced him as his initial attorney general choice. Johnson has acknowledged he has no role on the operations of the panel, which has traditionally operated separately from leadership. Many lawmakers believe that Gaetz resigned to try to bury the investigation. Yeah, duh. Gaetz, who was reelected to the seat last month prior to his resignation, has said he has no plans of returning returning to Congress next year. I'm still going to be in the fight, but it's going to be from a new perch. I do not intend to join the 119th Congress, he told Charlie Kirk in an interview last month. I'm going to be fighting for President Trump. I'm going to be doing whatever he asks of me, as I always have. Psychotic. But I think that 8 years is probably enough time in the United States Congress, he said. He also recently announced that he will be joining One America News Network in January. A spokesman for the committee did not respond to CNN's request for comment. So just a little update on that. And then let's end the episode with a Cuties Corner, which is from Fox News, right? This says Governor Newsom declares state of emergency in California due to bird flu. The declaration follows an outbreak among dairy cows in Southern California farms. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency due to H5N1, more commonly known as avian influenza or bird flu. And when we had the animal rights activist on several months ago, she told us, how often, how deeply bird flu can affect a flock or a farm. You really, you got to end up taking out all the animals. And by taking out, I do mean murdering them. The emergency follows an outbreak of the virus among dairy cows in Southern California farms, according to the news release on the governor's website. After initially being reported in Texas and Kansas in March, bird flu has been confirmed in cattle across 16 U.S. states, as the CDC has reported. There have been no cases of human transmission of bird flu in California, the release stated, with all infections linked to exposure to infected cattle. This proclamation is a targeted action to ensure government agencies have the resources and flexibility they need to respond quickly to this outbreak, Newsom said in a statement. Building on California's testing and monitoring system, the largest in the nation, we are committed to further protecting public health, supporting our agriculture industry, and ensuring that Californians have access to accurate, up-to-date information, he continued. While the risk to the public remains low, we will continue to take all necessary steps to prevent the spread of the virus. Also on Wednesday, today, the first case of severe bird flu was confirmed in a human patient in Louisiana, according to the CDC. The health agency maintains that the current public health risk is low, but said it is watching the situation carefully. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that going into the holiday season. Be careful of that bird flu. Be careful if you're coming into contact with cattle, if you live on a farm and you're going, or if you're going home to a farm for the holidays, just keep that in your mind. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Again, make sure to get tickets to that New Year's Eve show at New York Comedy Club on 12/31/24 at 6 p.m. Follow us on social media. I'm at Philanthropy Gal on all social media. Mike's at Them Harrington on all social media. We're Without a Country podcast on Instagram. And make sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube. Our numbers keep growing, and I am so happy to see it. That's at Without a Country, youtube.com/@withoutaCountry. Yes, Michael.
Sorry, I'm desperate to get a plug in. But if you're in New York City watching this live and want to laugh, come on out to Anxiety Attack tomorrow at New York Comedy Club. 10:15 show. Got Nathan McIntosh, Che Durena, Karen Feehan, special guest who I can't announce, but
You're going to have to whisper it to me.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a very fun show. So come out. Justin Silver's host. It should be fun.
Anxiety Attack at New York Comedy Club. Always a fantastic show. They get stellar lineups. If you're in the city tomorrow, I'm not on the show, but a lot of my friends are, and I've been on the show many times. It's a really, really fun show, and always sells out. Packed room in New York Comedy Club East Village, which is the same place that I'm doing my New Year's Eve show. And then, if you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutaCountry. Remember to keep critically thinking. And just a heads up, guys, I know some of you do not enjoy the holidays. Don't worry, I'll be here for you. There will be I know you think, there couldn't possibly be an episode on Christmas Day. I mean, we're not live streaming it, but there will be an episode on both Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Mike and I have already scheduled ahead to pre-record. So it'll be a couple days earlier than it usually is. So the news won't be as fresh, but we will be there with you through the holidays. The news does not rest. You know me, I don't like to miss episodes of my podcast. So thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to all my patrons. Thanks to all my wackos. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you on the line. Keep critically thinking.